So how do England stop their World Cup hopes vanishing into thin air?
I'm not quite sure the methods and the build-up exactly how it's going to be. We've already got a very fit bunch, but the altitude thing is something we have to counter, and I'm sure the team will do anything they can to get ourselves acclimatised.
Imagine being at the top of Britain's biggest mountain, Ben Nevis. Then add another 500 feet to get to Rustenburg, where England will play their first game against the USA. There are 5 key ways to prepare. Simulate the conditions before you go, perhaps in an altitude tent. Step up, go to lower altitude first, as England will do in Austria. Reduce training intensity initially at altitude. Monitor the players' reactions closely. And take iron and perhaps carbohydrate supplements.
Some people will find things like they'll have maybe minor headaches, they'll just feel a little bit more exhausted, they'll just feel much more tired than they normally would by doing the same things, and that can get progressively worse over a few days. So basically the way you lead into a football game is really important.
For Fabio Capello, the reality is that at altitude his players will perform below their peak, and it seems the key is simply being better prepared than your opponents. One way to do that is with a little indoor camping. Well, first glance it seems like any ordinary tent, which of course it is, except it's linked up to this clever machine which pumps in air with less oxygen in it. And initially the player would set it at about 1,500 metres and crank it up eventually to 3,000 metres, well above where they're expected to play, and they'll sleep in here every night for about 6 weeks before the World Cup begins. I don't really know what the wags will make of it, but hey, they must just lie down and think of England. David Beckham has asthma, so should he and England be particularly concerned?
In reality, people find that their asthma is actually better at altitude. For many reasons. One, there's less pollutants normally at altitude, there's less pollen because there's less plants there. But the air is actually also thinner, so it moves through the lungs easier than denser air at sea level. So I don't think you have a problem.
But this isn't just about breathing. In Rustenburg, the new World Cup ball will fly 5% more quickly and with less curve than it will in England's second game against Algeria at sea level in Cape Town.
The lower air resistance at altitude changes the flight pattern of the ball. For a given kick, velocity or force, the ball will travel that bit further at altitude compared to sea level.
You always have to climb a mountain to win a World Cup, but for England in South Africa, that's truer than ever. Ian Dovaston, Sky News.